Hey everyone, Adam with Droid Media here, and in today's video we're going to be putting text behind objects using Adobe Photoshop. In this video, we're going to be using Adobe Photoshop to put text behind objects for things like social media posts or cool YouTube thumbnails. And this is a really fun technique, and it doesn't have to be regulated to just text behind objects. Once you learn how to do this, you can start putting other objects behind objects, or you can use this effect to create composite images and things like that. So it's really cool. It's really simple. This is my favorite way to do it. I see a lot of people using masks in Adobe Photoshop to do it, but we're going to do this other really easy way. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and hop over to our computer screen. So this is the image that we're going to create. I'll actually leave the image that I'm using down below so you can download it and use it and follow along. So I've got this image here. I'm going to open with Adobe Photoshop. I've got the 2020 version. You can use one of the previous versions to do this as well. So you can see we've got our image here. It's just a boat. This was a long exposure photo that I took while I was up on a project up in Madison, Wisconsin. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to unlock this selection here so we can edit it. We're going to go ahead and select it, and we're going to right click and duplicate it. Now the reason that we're duplicating is because we're going to be pretty destructive to one of the layers, and we don't want to delete or affect the entire layer. This bottom layer we want to be the same forever. So we're actually going to shy that layer. We're going to hide it, but we want to make sure that that top layer is selected because that's the one that we're going to do all this stuff to. Let's go ahead and zoom in. I'm just hitting Command and the plus sign when I do that. It's a really easy way to zoom in or zoom out is Command and the minus sign. So we're going to zoom in and kind of zoom in on our screen. Now, the main tool we want to use is our magic wand tool, or it's up under our magic wand tool. Yours probably defaults to the magic wand. I was using this earlier, so it defaulted to the one that we want to use, which is the object selection tool. So what we want to do is select this boat and the little pillars. I don't boat, so I don't know what those are called, behind it, and the things that are going into the water, kind of the little, I don't know, dock thingy that it's on out here in the water. So this tool is really powerful, but it does need a little bit of help. If I click and drag around this boat, Adobe's going to do some fun little math, and it's going to say, hey, I bet you wanted that boat selected. So it's going to select the boat for me, which is great. But you can see that we're missing things like this steering column. We're missing some of the, the seats, the motor, and some of these other things. So the great thing about this selection tool is that if you hit Shift and add in some other things, so we're going to click and add this one in, it's going to think, it's going to do some math, and it's going to add that to our selection. And the smaller the object is that you want selected, the easier Adobe is going to have an idea of what you want, and it's going to select that. So it didn't do a great job when we had the whole boat selected, but the smaller these items, the more likely it is to get it right. We're just going to go through and select the rest of the stuff that we want, which are the seats and the steering wheel and these little pillar things. Once you have that entire boat selected, go up to select, and we want to click inverse. Now, one of the things that we want to do is we want to go ahead and delete this. So let's zoom in and take a look. It did a pretty good job. There are some little spots here that we can see through that we're going to want to touch up, but overall, this did a really good job. Let's keep that zoomed in. And now what we want to do is go in here and click the regular magic wand tool, and we want to go ahead and get rid of some of these little areas so we can see through, maybe like the steering wheel and down here in the seats, things that you would actually be able to see through in real life if there was a huge thing of text maybe behind your boat in the water. So that's looking pretty good. And if you want to get rid of some of these pieces down here, great. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because it is just for a fun little YouTube video. If this is like paid client work, you might want to spend a little bit more time doing some of these things. Now, go ahead and hit the E button for eraser, and let's get rid of some of these little pieces out here. And we're going to zoom in and touch up anything that needs touched up. So zoom way in, too far. And the bracket in and bracket out are really easy keyboard shortcut ways to make your brush or eraser smaller or larger. Let's go ahead and click these. Just kind of drag those around. No one other than maybe our moms is going to be sitting there looking at these, so it's okay if this is not absolutely perfect. But we want to get rid of some of these little kind of rough edges, the little snaggly edges around here. anything where the text is going to be showing behind, we want to clean up a little bit. Unshy that bottom layer. I'm going to zoom back out, and then we're going to go over here and click the text tool. I'm going to click out here, I'm going to type the word boat in, and you can see this is the former previous text that I had already. We're going to click and drag that, and we're going to let Adobe tell us, hey, when is this going to be centered? There we go. And we're going to move it up a little bit. Great. Now, this looks pretty boring, and the quickest way to do this, just click and drag that text layer down into the middle, and boom, you have got text behind an object. Now, one of the effects that I really like to do to sell this is to bring out that foreground a little bit further. And the easiest way to do that is by making sure to select it, go down here to the little bitty effects panel underneath your window and click drop shadow. Now what this is going to do is you can see immediately it's going to add a little bit of a drop shadow behind that object, and it's going to push that text back a little bit kind of in three-dimensional space, give us a little bit more depth in our image. It's going to sell this effect a little bit more. And just click OK. You can mess around with those parameters on your own time. But here you go, folks. This is how you put text behind objects in Adobe Photoshop. Were there other techniques that you like to use or other simpler ways to do this? If so, let us know in the comment section below. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I will see you next time. Oh man, they did a horrible job. All right, let's start this motherfucker over. Hey.